Welcome to CWS Christian Writing and Speaking. I'm your host, Jackie Wilson, and today's guest is a Kingdom Life Coach who helps women rise above the confusion and navigate life's transitions from a Christ-centered perspective. After she adopted her two youngest children from Ethiopia, God rearranged everything she thought she knew about life and love, and she knew she needed to seek counseling in order to get her head above water and figure out how to keep her family afloat. But when she went to that counselor, she heard words that she was not planning to hear. Motherhood is not your highest calling. Since then, she has made it her life's work to speak life and freedom into other women and men's lives. She believes God has downloaded key gifts and talents inside each of us, and we are meant to share it with the world. Let's welcome to the CWS stage, Miss Megan Nilsen. Welcome,
You got it.
Megan.
Hi, I'm so happy to be here. Oh my goodness. Even listening to you, I'm like, who is that person? What did she go through?
Yes,
Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
we definitely have to hear your story because the fact that the counselor said, okay,
Yeah.
motherhood is
No,
not your highest calling, it's just, it grabs your
it's a
attention.
hook. It's a hook.
Absolutely.
Listen,
So,
yeah, it's so funny because yeah, I mean that statement just has pivoted me in a whole new space towards freedom and growth. And that was 10 years ago. So the backstory is that my husband and I, we'd been married 10 years. We had two biological kids, kind of doing the natural family planning discussions about, hey, are we done having kids, et cetera, et cetera. And I just always had this little seed, this tiny little spark, like, well, we're done having biological kids, but if God ever called us to adoption, then we would adopt. And that was sort of the refrain for years. Are you guys done having kids? Maybe, but we'd adopt. So fast forward a few years from there, and I'm kind of doing life as usual, stay at home mom, dropping the kids off at school, this and that. And I just had this feeling, like this overwhelming. I don't know if your listeners, like when you feel like the Holy Spirit is talking to you, it's like nothing else can get your attention. And I remember dropping off my older two at school, and the Holy Spirit was like, scrap your day. Don't do all the, go to the gym and do your work and this and that. Like, go home, shut down social media, turn off the phone, and just seek my will about adoption
mm,
and orphan care. So I did that. And it turns out God has a lot of things to say about adoption and orphans in scriptures. Just FYI, if you're ever doing a word study. So at the end of that, I was like, all right, Lord, I can tell this is on your heart. What's this supposed to look like for our family? And I had always imagined that the Lord would just sort of, like, it would just come to me, like some horrible tragic thing would happen, which I would never wish on anybody. But then people would say, there's these kids and they need a family, and we thought of you. So here's we want you to adopt them. I thought, well, I'm just open for the phone call, Lord. And immediately when I thought that, he was like, you know what? You can walk out your front door and you can look around, because you're waiting for a kid to land on your doorstep, and there are millions around the world that need a home. It's like, okay. Wow, he just put the ball back in my court. So we ended up adopting our two youngest kids from Ethiopia, which is a great, wonderful God story in and of itself. But when they came home, as you can imagine, it was difficult. It was hard. It was overwhelming and otherworldly, and it was. I mean, it was December, it was Christmas time in Colorado. I mean, it's snow, it's freezing, there's like lights and songs everywhere. And so, first of all, for their little brains, I mean, it's like overwhelming, right? Coming from like an orphanage situation to this
mhm,
overstimulating. And when we brought them home, I mean, coming from a place of trauma, and those of you who are listening that have experienced trauma yourself or been real close to someone who's experienced trauma, I mean, your brain is not functioning in a kind of a typical healthy way. I mean, they were just thrown into the situation that was just really overwhelming for everybody. And so our kids were 7 and 5 when they came home. Our son was 7, our daughter was 5, of the two Ethiopian kiddos. And so just, wanting to run away and hitting, biting, screaming, like really grieving the life that they left. I mean, I imagine it would feel like you're being kidnapped, honestly. I mean, this like white family shows up and they're like, hey, we're your new mommy and daddy. Like, it sounds like a horror film, we're going to put you on a plane and take you somewhere else. So I can just imagine for their little brains what was going on. But anyway, so inside our home, it was really, really difficult for everybody. And I was like, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. I think we've ruined everybody's lives. I mean, we should have never done this. I think we didn't hear God right. Like, this is not going well. So I remember one night talking to my husband about it, and he was, God bless him, he would just come home from work all the time. And I'm like, hey, we need help. We need help. We need help. I cannot control the chaos around here. And he's like, babe, I think you need to talk to somebody. Like, I don't know what to do. I'm doing everything I can. I'm sacrificing. I'm like, oh, okay. You feel like you're sacrificing. Well, I feel like motherhood is a sacrifice. This whole thing is a sacrifice. Like, I have now chained myself to the house, and I don't know how to do this. So I called some friends, found a counselor that I went to go see, and I sat down on her couch. It's a few months in after the kids came home, and I sat down and I just poured out the whole story. I mean, this is so hard. You can't even believe it. I don't know what to do. My life is a sacrifice. And I'm not kidding you, just took a second and stared me straight in the eyes. And she's like, well, motherhood is not your highest calling. I was like, back it up. What? I'm like, okay. I mean, she just like blew my whole paradigm. I was like, okay, motherhood's not my highest calling. Not only did I have 2 kids, we've just doubled down. I have 4. They've come from trauma. Like, this is all I'm doing. So I'm not quite sure what you mean. And she went on to explain very gently, but clearly, Megan, your highest calling is to be a daughter of the King. You are God's daughter. You are a person. You are a whole person in and of yourself. He's created you with your gifts and talents. He's created you for, the fruit of the Spirit: joy, peace, patience, kindness, gentleness. I wasn't experiencing any of that at that point. She said, so when you get aligned with the Lord, when you attach yourself and abide in that vine of Jesus, you will get the nourishment you will need. You will get the perspective and the orienting that you need to put the kingdom first, and everything else will flow from that, including your marriage, including your parenting, etc., your motherhood. And so from that day forward, I mean, that was 10 plus years ago. That is the journey that I have been on. What does this mean to be a mom? Certainly motherhood, fatherhood, parenting of any kind is a high calling. It's an enormous privilege and responsibility. So she wasn't diminishing the fact that the work, she wasn't diminishing the work. She was challenging me on where I was really anchoring my identity. And then whether or not any of my kids, biological or adopted, no matter how they act, no matter how they behave, no matter if they ever attach to me, no matter if they ever say, I love you, I know who I am. I know, I'm strong in the Lord, and I will receive any love as a gift, but not as like some sort of inalienable right. Do you know what I mean? So that set me on that track. And that's really when I started writing as well. So you didn't really, I don't know if we're heading into the book, but I can talk about that.
Yeah.
But writing became to me a therapy that was so just calming. I had started a blog, probably like a lot of people do, especially 10 years ago, when they're doing something big, quote unquote, and they want to let people know about it, right? I thought people are going to want to know about our adoption journey. They're going to kind of want to know the ins and outs and the dates and this and that. I didn't realize that it would just, the things that I was thinking and feeling would begin to flow out of me, and the words being able to kind of make sense in some way, name and understand what I was feeling, and then kind of go, okay, Lord, what's your perspective here? I am feeling overwhelmed. There's trauma, there's brokenness. I feel this, but I know you are a good God. I know that you are trustworthy and true. So help me connect these dots and make sense of this. And that's kind of where my writing came in, as I was looking for that kingdom perspective over something that felt really hard and dark, especially at that time. So, yeah.
What's the name of your book?
It's called A Beautiful Exchange: Responding to God's Invitation for More. And the reason that title struck me is because the whole concept that I'm writing about is this, what comes very naturally for me, and so I'm guessing maybe a few others as well, is kind of following the Lord and being like, God, I want to hear your voice. I want to follow you into whatever you have for me. But dot, 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 can it kind of look like this? Can it really fit into my lifestyle and, kind of bless what I'm already doing? And I really felt like the Holy Spirit was like, you want to follow me, but you have this, like, your whole heart and mind is full of your own ideas and the way you would sort of like to control the narrative. But if you fully surrender, if you fully surrender all that you think, and you read this in the bio, all that you think as a human being about life and love, kind of that Job scenario. Oh, Job, oh, you think who hung the stars, but we're going to have a little sit down. I'm going to let you know it's me. So it was like, he was like, if you surrender to me, just release everything, open your arms, I will exchange what you as a human being feel like it's a counterfeit life, it's counterfeit truth. And so you empty it, you surrender it, I will exchange that for more than you can even fathom. And that narrative in the book starts with that adoption journey, but it really is my story as a woman, as a mom, surrendering motherhood kind of on the altar of idolatry and going, okay, Lord, I don't know. I really don't know. And I'm incapable. So you refill me. What does it look like for you to refill me with your love, your heart, your supernatural wisdom and knowledge? We go from there. And so that's a whole different kind of life that I believe is just, it's going to kind of blow the first option out of the water.
And then what you did was transition into life coaching. So what is it that you want people to understand?
Ooh, that's a big episode right there. What do I want people to understand? What I love about life coaching is it takes someone to this point of, what are you experiencing? What are you feeling? Let's sit in that real space for a moment. Because I really was overwhelmed as a mom. And yet there was someone with the grace and perspective to say, hey, this is not all there is. What you are feeling and experiencing, yes, it is real, but God can enter in, and he can talk to you, and he can lead you and pivot your trajectory into a new space. So life coaching is really about going, okay, what does your life look like? What are you experiencing? And what are you contending for? What are you like, hey, this relationship that I'm experiencing, or this vocational job that I'm experiencing is heavy, hard, overwhelming. So first of all, we look for God's hand at work in it, because a lot of times we just kind of want to ditch the thing and say, God must not be here. So first of all, I'm like, hold up, God is present and active where you are. So let's get centered there. And then let's ask him, is there anything else he wants you to know? Is there any place else he wants to take you? And then as a life coach, I help kind of bridge that gap and have that safe space to process the real and the hard, but also challenge and encourage towards something that feels exciting and new, but you just don't quite know how to get there or attain it. And you just need some guidance.
It all sounds wonderful. I love what it is that you're doing. What is next for you?
Well, I'm a creative at heart. So I love coaching. So I am definitely growing my coaching practice. In that regard, two types of people are kind of my sweet spot. Number one is the person who is feeling like that nudge to the big, bold move. They're feeling restless. They're feeling like they've got something inside them that needs to come out, whether that's a book or a podcast or a new job or something. And I love to kind of help them walk into that new thing. The second place is college age girls. So I'm growing my practice with college age girls. So if anybody here is listening, has a college age daughter or loves a college age woman, she is in a season of that transition, of that new thing that's exciting, trying to find her voice in the world. And sometimes it can be overwhelming and stressful when everything's coming at you. So I love to walk with her in that space. So that's the coaching piece. And then the writing, I have a few more writing ideas in my hat too. One is specifically a journal for listening to the voice of God. And I feel like God downloaded an 8-step process to me where you can kind of let it all out, hear from him and figure out what's the next right step for you in your journey. So I would love to publish that. So
Yeah.
coaching and publishing are still very much alive and active in my life.
I love that. How can people connect with you?
Gosh, I'm on Facebook mostly. So you can find me personally at Megan Bradley Nilsen, Nilsen. And I have a Facebook group, private group for anybody that wants to go deeper in their faith, rise higher in life. It's called Beautiful Exchange Community Group. So that's a private Facebook group. And then on Instagram, I'm at Megan_Nilsen, Nilsen. And my website, lastly, is Megan, Megan, B as in boy, Nilsen, Nilsen.com. So hanging out in those 3 places.
Thank you so much, Megan, for sharing your story with us. CWS audience, if you are experiencing what Megan has experienced and you're starting to feel overwhelmed, first of all, get her book. Go to her website, connect with her, but know that you don't have to do this alone. That the most important part of this is that you reconnect with God, reconnect with the kingdom, and so that you can find your true identity in that first, and then allow God to lead you into the other aspects of your life. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. We greatly appreciate you. And until next time, beautiful people, God bless.
Thanks, Jackie.